how do you recognize, because there's so much going on right now. People are just having bad luck. They're having bad seasons. We all feel like we've had a couple of bad years. How do you recognize the difference between clinical depression, something, that really needs some intervention over, we're just having a rough time. We went bankrupt. We lost our house, but, I'm sad, but I'm okay. How do you know the difference?
You can't say Dr. Mo ain't tell ya that fear magnifies the consequences of failure. What are you scared of? Why are you afraid? I'd rather live like I'm dying than live to die. Any day my heart is pure, my soul is safe.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion with Dr. Mo Anderson. I'm your host, Mo Anderson, and my goal is to help you review, renew, and re-you. Today, I've got a wonderful guest, Stacey D. Brown, who turned a near fatal experience with depression into a national platform as a mental health and wellness expert who has been featured in Rolling Out magazine, huge, and gives workshops on mental and spiritual wellness all over the country. Her story is amazing. We're going to talk about some tough subjects, but we're also going to talk about some real strategies for finding a path to peace. Welcome, Stacey.
Hello, Dr. Mo. How are you?
I am great. I'm better now. I'm looking forward to hearing these strategies because we're going through some tough times right now as a nation. And I've heard you speak on this topic, so I'm very excited and appreciate you joining me for this episode. I just spoke a little bit about your background, but you have more titles than me, and I work like I'm feeding 10 kids here at the house. What all are your different roles? Your CV is incredible.
Okay, so yes, I do have a lot of titles. I'm an ordained minister, so Reverend, it is one of those titles that you may hear someone use. I'm also a mental health peer specialist by the state of Texas, and I'll get into a little bit more of what that is later on. I'm also a master life coach and a advocate, activist, and strategist. I also do consulting. So I do a lot, but ultimately my goal is to help people do life better. So that's my main focus overall.
That's a beautiful main focus. And we've established you've got a lot of roles and a lot of knowledge. You are concentrating on mindfulness, mental health, spiritual development, but that's not how your career started. What were you doing before you got into this arena?
Okay, so before I was doing mental health and wellness, I was actually an auditor and did quality and compliance for 15 years. Oh, wow. So that's what really led me to, be really focused on strategies rather than just one-offs, because I understand that most things, there's a system to it. So that's what I was doing before. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. A process and a system and being strategic. So I can see how that, and I'm glad that you said that because that plays into very much what you're doing now, I'm sure. As I understand it, reading your bio, having heard you speak before, in 2013, you went through a series of heartbreaking tragedies. What happened that year?
Oh, see, that was what I call my Job years. So in 2013, I had my son in March and then lived with very, very severe postpartum. And in June of that year, I dealt with infidelity in my relationship. And my father passed away on Father's Day.
Wow.
So dealing with a whole bunch of grief in that aspect. 4 months later, my sister at the age of 36 would pass away unexpectedly from a brain tumor that we didn't even know she had. She didn't even know she had.
Wow.
And then later on that next year in 2014, our house caught on fire. So it was just like a series of things. And like many people, I was just, like many women, Black women, I'll emphasize, we don't have time to deal with this. We're going to move forward. We don't have time to cry. We don't have time to pout. We don't have time to break down. We don't wallow. We do not.
We don't faint.
We move forward.
Right.
But eventually those emotions will come back. And what usually happens is they manifest themselves as physical ailments. And for me, it came back with interest. And so in 2014, I started to have health issues with my heart. And really and truly, just with everything that happened, I was overwhelmed. So in April of 2014, I attempted to take my own life because I was done. I didn't want to be the strong one anymore. I felt like everything I touched just turned into, just crap. I really did. And so I felt it was better for me to not be here. And really, it was nothing but a cry out for help, because that's really what people want when they, are attempting suicide. They just want an escape from the pain.
Right.
They want to escape from the emotions. And that's where I was. And during those years, 2013 and 2014.
That's a difficult, dark place to be. And I have shared my own story, mostly with women's church groups, but also in some of my writing. I've struggled with clinical depression my whole life. Even as a child, I didn't recognize it. My family didn't recognize it. They just thought I was a quiet, weird kid, but I was having really dark thoughts. And I describe it to people as, I didn't attempt suicide, but I was so depressed and everything was so dark and heavy that when I went to bed each night, if I didn't wake up, it would have been okay.
Yes.
And that's, it's like, I didn't do anything directly, but I wasn't really excited about living. And I just didn't want my life. My life was hard. My life was hard and difficult, and I didn't feel like I could talk about it. People were looking for me to be Dr. Mo, and it was just too much. So I very much relate to that. And we're not the only ones who've been in that place. So thank you for, just sharing that and being honest about it. And particularly after what had happened to you, those losses, you have my sympathies. I know it's been a while, but that doesn't go away quickly. I've lost family members dear to me, and that pain and those emotions and those memories, especially with holidays and all of that. So God bless you. And I just want to clarify one thing for my listeners who may not be Christian. When she said her Job year, Job was a man in the Bible who, he wasn't blameless, but he was a pretty good man. He was a wealthy man. He had lots of kids. He had a marriage, and things just started happening. They started happening. All of his cattle was gone, and just a terrible series of tragedies. And there'd be a messenger to come to tell him and say, I alone survived, lost his children, and his wife told him to curse God and die. It was really bad. And the reason I know that story so well is because Job 121 says, I shall live and not die and declare the word of the Lord. And that got me through two surgeries for cancer right there. So yeah, I know a Job year as well. So you're in that dark place. We both describe it as heavy, it's horrible, it's difficult for people around you to understand. What strategies did you use? How did you come out of that?
For me, one of the best strategies that I could have ever employed was getting professional help. That I personally decided to go through hospitalization for my treatment. So I did inpatient, and then I scaled back to partial hospitalization. And in that partial hospitalization, I would go every day from 9:00 till about 3:30, and we would have groups.
Let me clarify. Are you saying personal hospitalization?
Partial. So partial.
Okay, gotcha. I wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying. Partial hospitalization.
Yes.
Okay.
Partial hospitalization. Yes. And so you go every day from 9:00 till about 3:30, and you're working on, individual counseling, group counseling. You're working on life skills. You're working on things that, trigger you, past traumas. It's a deep dive. deep dive. And for some people, it may be a little bit too much, but I was literally fighting for my life. So I was by any means necessary. I'm going to get this done.
That was a life craft.
Right. Yeah. It was. And then I stepped down to intensive outpatient therapy. So that goes to about 3 days a week. And then you go from the same about 9 to 3. And then I continued to do personal therapy with a outside therapist on a consistent basis for about 2 years. Okay. Also, my prayer life was really consistent. Even if the prayer was, Jesus, Lord, I love you, but what the hell?
What Peter said, the shortest prayer in the Bible, wasn't it Peter when he was sinking in the water? Lord, help me.
Lord, help me.
It doesn't be long. It
really doesn't. It really doesn't. And like, Lord, I love you, but and it wasn't meant to be disrespectful or blasphemous, but it was just what the sentiment was. And I believe that's what God requires of us. It's just authentic, true communication, because he knows it anyways. So you might as well tell him. Right. So really having that prayer life and that connection with him. And then lastly, having a very, very good support network, somebody and a group of people who are going to really hold you accountable, who are going to love you through it, who are going to be there when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, empowering through to praise you through that part, but also redirect you when, ma'am, I noticed you haven't been taking your medication. I'm going to need you to get on that. Or did we go to our therapy session today? No, I just didn't feel like it. Okay, well, good. We're going tomorrow. We'll call you. Absolutely. To ensure.
For that to happen and rest too, I want to throw that in there. I was just explaining to someone that's when your mind and body heals. This whole thing of not sleeping is absolutely detrimental to our bodies. But you said so many things there, and I want to break something down before we get to the friend and the need for a tribe. Those different stages of hospitalization, because not just our culture, but there are a lot of other cultures that are kind of anti-therapy and counseling. But for you and for the person who realizes I need help, you said you went from hospitalization to partial hospitalization. Like, I know you didn't just decide, somebody decided, work with you to decide, okay, we're ready, for you can go home, but we still need this. And then, we can get to that step. What was the difference in how you felt? I'm sure there were conversations about medication and how you were acting, but what was the difference in how you felt that you even agreed, okay, maybe I'm ready to go to this level of therapy? Do you remember?
Right. So for me, it was being able to do consistently life function. So consistently getting up and bathing, consistently getting up and putting on clothes, eating, not sleeping the day away. Because that's how you really can tell that you're to those next steps. With clinical depression, there's many signs, for it, but really for me, it was just not feeling like a zombie. So I knew,
Gotcha.
I knew when I was ready to step down, it was when I started to feel more like a person, and I could really comprehend more about, okay, we're going from survival now to stepping into those next steps and actually figuring out some things, some self-actualization, some growth, some, really comparing things and contrasting things. So that's how I knew I was able to step down. But like you said, the treatment team, they're on it. They're on it. They're going to make sure that they're not doing anything before time. But
right. Because that's detrimental to you and the program. And so that's the thing too, that the point that I'm trying to make is so often people they get checked in, they're forced to be put in for the 3 days or whatever the amount of time that they can do that. And then they just want to leave, but nothing's really changed other than you don't like being there, but you don't like being where you were either. And Absolutely. You're still ruminating and you're still fatigued and you're still having the same, either the angry thoughts, the depressed thoughts, the bitter thoughts. So, there is a change, not just in your behavior, but there's a change in the way you're thinking as you're healing. And the people need to recognize that if you're still having the same actions and the same thoughts, you're not getting better. And you need to let somebody know that too.
Absolutely.
Not lie about it, because I know people who have just lied their way out of it and pretended to be better. And that's not good for your family either. So, I just really appreciate you sharing these experiences that you had personally, because I said to you, before we started recording, that I have a lot of mental health experts on, but they want to tell everybody else's story. Maybe they don't have their own story to tell, but to hear from you, I know when I share very painful, intimate things I have throughout my career, because those things are most universal. Those are things that resonate with people when they hear your story. And you're going to be helped both ways, but it makes a difference when it's your truth. So you said those strategies regarding having a tribe, having people around you. What if we are 22, we're at an epidemic of loneliness and people not having friends. I read an article, I think it was HuffPost the other day, about why you don't have any friends. The way we are, this digital space, how do you create a tribe when, say, you live in New York, you live in a big city in your apartment, you're working virtually now, and you are in a bad place, but there's nobody. What do you do then?
Oh, I can definitely attest to this. 2020 was hard. It was very hard. Living in Dallas, and all my family lives other places. So what we did was establish, utilize technology to help keep our accountability. So we had family prayer meetings every other week. We did check-in calls. I called my mom. She's in Mountain Time. She lives in El Paso. So I would call her at a certain time every day. I would check in with certain family members via Messenger, just really keeping that contact and that communication up. Yes, it's not the same than having that person physically there. However, still having that person that's going to, or that group of people that is going to hold you to that same accountability, right. Be it whether they're virtual or whether they're in person. I know, whether my mom is here or whether my mom is in El Paso, I'm still going to get woken up at the same time. Bless you, baby. Come on, get up. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I know it's going to happen.
That's what mamas do.
Right. That's exactly. And the same thing, with my friends, even though we weren't able to meet, we used to have Wednesdays was our thing. After we put the kids to bed, we got together and we get our wine glasses and we would laugh and just talk about all the crazy stuff that happened with the kids in virtual school and, just normal stuff.
And wind down.
And wind down. Yep. That's exactly what we called it. Wind down Wednesday. Yep. We looked forward to it. We really did.
Right.
But that's what helped us stay sane, was having that routine, having that consistency there. Even though they weren't there, they were still there. Right. And that's what really helps in this virtual age. And even if you don't necessarily have a lot of family and friends, utilize these social media platforms. There are so many groups that you can join that become your community, that become your tribe. I'm a member of a number of them, more as in the mentor aspect of it, but it still helps just as well to understand that you're not alone. You're not the only one that's experiencing these things. You're not the only one. You won't be the first and you're not going to be the last. But to help people to live through it. And, I've had so many resources come through in different states, different countries. And it's really been a benefit. It's really been a benefit. So utilize technology. We're in the stage. Mm-hmm.
I love too that you had, I think you said with your mother, a particular time that you talked, because that pattern, that accountability would help to know that, there's that expectation, but also if they didn't hear from you at that time, somebody knows something is wrong. I've got to be honest. Exactly. I live alone. I love my life, but if I was lying up here for 2 days and couldn't move, it would be my job. They probably would contact the authorities, because my family would be like, well, you hear from her 3 or 4 times a week. So I'm going to do better about that, because it really is good to have a routine with somebody, for them to know. And I think that's another another clue too. If you're doing that and suddenly you don't want to, you've always got an excuse. You're withdrawn, and that's a clue. Something's not right. We need to talk.
Absolutely.
So that's great. You've got a great group around you. I'm happy. So now here you are, healthy, amazing, out in the community, leading, advocating. And I know you personally, so I can say that you do it with excellence as well, the finer way. So Happy Founders Day, by the way. Happy Founders Day.
Thank you. 102, yes. Looks good on you.
Years. We are sorority sisters, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And people always ask me, why do you have to say incorporated? I'm like, you just do.
It just flows.
You just do. It flows. So, but now you are the executive director of Elevate Movement, and I'm going to spell that for my people who immediately Google everything. ELEV, the number 8, and the word movement. What is the focus of this organization?
So Elevate Movement really focus on mental health from a holistic perspective. One of the things I have found in my work within mental health is that a lot of times we believe that issues are very siloed. So if somebody tells you that they have an issue, that's causing them stress in finance, we only look at finance, when really and truly we do need to look at some other areas. Okay, well, how are the finances impacting the relationship? How's the relationship impacting your job life? How is your job life impacting your? So they're all interconnected. And it was founded on the work that the United States government actually did with developing the 8 dimensions of wellness. So we focus on working with groups to provide resources, volunteers, and as well as organizational development to help them to help people in those areas. So we work with a number of different groups that assist with that, but also provide classes, training, as well as peer-led sessions for our community. Mm-hmm.
Is that when you say our community, is this the Dallas-Fort Worth area? Can anyone anywhere in the country, or is there Elevate everywhere?
Right. So we're working on everywhere. We do have mainly serve Dallas-Fort Worth. We are looking to launch some of our peer courses, or peer classes rather, on the virtual platform. So that way anybody everywhere can join, because we are grateful that technology allows us to be in different places without actually being there. Right, so that's the focus right now. Okay. Is Dallas-Fort Worth.
And now everybody knows how to use Zoom and various video messaging platforms. Right. They had to learn whether they wanted to or not. That's one of the few upsides of 2020, 2021, going into 2022, is that we have stepped up our digital game big time. So I am happy about that, because I'm connecting. I recently did a podcast with a couple over in Japan, and it was just delightful, and in real time. Mm-hmm. So in addition to all these other things you do, like with Elevate, you mentioned earlier that you're a mental health peer specialist. I have never heard that term in my life, but you could fill the Smithsonian with what I don't know. So help a sister out.
Yes. So a mental health peer specialist, we are, trained and certified mental health specialists. However, we're a little bit different than a therapist and a counselor, is that we lead from our personal experience within mental health. So as you heard, I live with clinical depression and bipolar disorder. So I'm able to come from a different perspective than a therapist would come, if they're simply looking at the clinical. Now, I don't tell you what to do, because no mental health professional will tell you what to do. We will simply reframe, right?
Unfortunately.
We will reframe. Right. We will reframe and just point things out. We don't do that.
Right.
But where I'm able to come from is personal experience. So what I can tell you is, when I went through something similar, this is what I did. Mm-hmm. Not telling you to do it, but just adding some perspective, real life application, and kind of practicum to it. And so it provides a little bit a more of a personal standpoint, which a lot of people do in because, just the requirements of therapists and counselors, especially within the state of Texas, there's, that veil of professionalism. So I can't share too much with you, because I want to ensure that we keep that, that boundary. But as a peer, I'm able to get a little more personal. Of course, as a mental health professional, I still do have to maintain professionality as well. But you get to know Stacey, the person, and my struggles, Stacey, the mental health professional. So, and it's also really great because it's a low. You don't necessarily have to have a master's degree. You do have to have training. You do have to have certification, but it's available for anybody who really just wants to make a difference in their community and has lived with mental illness. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. It reminds me of CASA, a group I was involved with for a while, and they're advocates for kids in the, what am I trying to say? They're like in the social work system, juveniles, and so they're going to court and they train them, and you don't have to be a legal professional, but you can bond with the child and serve such a valuable, role. And I know that you do as well, because I definitely, I feel better. Well, even if it's, a minister at the church, if I go to a singles event and there's some married people up there trying to tell me about single life, I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Thank you very much for reporting what you read in an article or what you saw on MSNBC. But it's not quite
that. Was cute.
Right, that was cute. Hello. But I listen. I'm trying to learn whatever. So. Amen, hallelujah. But I really like that, and I'm happy to know about that, and that other people now know about that as a resource. So your community involvement is impressive. You are involved with, we mentioned Zeta Phi Beta Sorority. You're actually the bossless of a chapter in Fort Worth.
Yes.
You're with the Urban League Young Professionals, Faith Forward Dallas, the ministry, Faith in Texas. You got a lot of faith, and I love that. I love that too. You gotta have faith. It makes a difference. But you have 3 children. You have your own, need for space and time. So for those who are listening and thinking, well, okay, I can do 900 things too. Let's talk about balance. How do you make this happen and still have time for Wind Down Wednesday?
Oh, yes. Oh, so it's all about balance. So I tell people, I have a lot of balls in the air and I know some are going to drop. However, it's important for me to know which ones are the glass balls and which ones are the plastic balls. So I know which ones will break and which ones will bounce. So for me, of course, the glass ball, definitely first and foremost, is my family. My first responsibility is as a mother, and, of course, self-care, that's definitely a glass ball because I can't be a mother or any of these other 8,000 things that I do if I'm not mentally well. So I'm a firm believer of the word no. I say it very well. No,
that's a complete sentence too.
Complete sentence. I provide no
boundary. It's a boundary, and it's a complete sentence. I don't have to explain everything.
No. And I'm very good with my schedule. If it's not on my schedule, I'm sorry, it doesn't exist. It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
That's good. That's good. Let's repeat that. If it needs to be scheduled, it needs to be on my schedule because your lack of preparation is not my emergency. So if it's not on my schedule. If it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. I can't help you right now. And that's hard for the procrastinators who want you to jump and rescue them, but that saves you and it teaches them to be more disciplined if they want to interact with you, which is a life skill we all need to learn. So yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's not on my schedule. That's right. It's like if it's not on Instagram, it didn't happen.
Well, a lot of stuff didn't happen in my life because I sure didn't put it on Facebook.
Right. I didn't see that in my feed. So you didn't get married because I didn't see a picture of it. But girl, it's gotten ridiculous. It has gotten ridiculous. But I appreciate all of these wonderful things that you shared. And my last question for you is, How do you recognize, because there's so much going on right now, people are just having bad luck, they're having bad seasons. We all feel like we've had a couple of bad years. How do you recognize the difference between clinical depression, something, that really needs some intervention over, we're just having a rough time, we went bankrupt, we lost our house, but I'm sad, but I'm okay. How do you know the difference?
Right. And, it's kind of hard during this time because this is where we call our sad time. So seasonal affective disorder. We get less sunlight. It's colder, so we can't really go outside. How you know the difference between clinical and rather than just mood becomes your physical. So if we are doing things such as our appetite changes, our sleep pattern changes, things that we used to enjoy doing that we don't do anymore. We're really becoming more lethargic. You'll notice your energy is leaving you. These are when it steps into clinical, because what has happened now, it's become more than just a mood. It is now an imbalance of chemicals in your brain. So we now need medical intervention to correct those things. So that's why I really tell people to pay attention. When I had a mentor that would always tell us to take our meds. And what it was focusing on was our meditation, our exercise, our sleep, and really our diet. So to watch, and I will say, really watch all those things when you're really paying attention. How is your concentration? Are you able to stay focused? Because that's another clinical sign, inability to focus on tasks, or what I call, Finding Nemo with Dory, where she was like, "Ooh, over here. Ooh,
oh yeah,
here."
yes. Yeah. Easily distracted, kind of ADHD kind of behavior.
ADHD, right? That's really what it feels like. When you're starting to step into that clinical role, where you're forgetful. That's another sign of clinical depression that people don't know. Also, for men and sometimes women, unexplained aggression, where you're just moody and snap on people and you don't even know where that came from. Hold on. I thought I was feeling fine.
And that's not your nature, because I know your nature, but that's just how they roll.
We don't have to clarify, right? It's not your nature. But those are all things that you have to pay attention to, because really and truly, if you let those symptoms linger and we start to have a prolonged time period where those chemicals are not balanced, then we start to see where the recovery time is worse, and we start to see the symptoms become more severe. So that's why I want people to really, really pay attention to your sleep, pay attention to your diet, pay attention to your attention span, pay attention to even your weight loss. Of course, if your diet's affected, your weight is going to be affected as well. Mm-hmm.
That's excellent. You just brought something to mind. I'd share with you. I've had some episodes in my life, and I really think the second one was postpartum depression. But again, we weren't talking about it. It was not long after my second son was born, whom I love dearly, but I just could not shake the blues. And I kept putting my purse in the refrigerator, and I couldn't find it. It was just the weirdest thing. And when I finally got in some therapy, and I was talking about that, and to do it multiple times and still not think to look in the refrigerator for it. It was just the most bizarre thing. And I remember him saying, "What does your purse mean to you?" And I thought about the things in my purse, which were like, at that time, bills, carrying around paper bills, and things that I needed to do for people, and lists of stuff. And it was a bunch of stuff I didn't want to deal with. So I was literally locking it away somewhere, but it took somebody to help me see that, and to see some other things that I was doing, including being very just angry and snapping at everybody. But it was, that's the thing, is for people to understand that the neurotransmitters, the serotonin and things are off. So you're not just dealing with a sad person or a mean person, you're dealing with someone with a medical problem, and they need medical intervention. And that is my big thing around mental health and wellness, which you brought to us with great clarity, is that it is a medical problem. People can be helped. You can help them. and they can help themselves. And that's where we have to go to understand that we can't get to a place of peace and light from a really, really dark place. You are a perfect example. I wish we'd done this live so people could see how vibrant and amazing you are. But let's tell them how they can reach out to you, get information, and learn more. Where can we contact you?
Absolutely. So although I say I don't post on Facebook, I'm on there. You can find me at Stacey, STACEY, DB Speaks. And that is my handle on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. Y'all, I'm still trying to learn how to work that, but I'm on there. Also, you can, if you're interested in learning about the projects that I have ongoing or working with me, you can go to my website at www.staceydbrown.com.
Okay. And I will drop those in the show notes. I'm sure a lot of people will want to contact you and learn more about you, what you're doing. And they might just want to, like me, to say thank you. I appreciate you so much and really appreciate you sharing your story and your journey. Wishing you much, much success and many, many more happy years and, you know, the ability to help people. That's what I live for. I live to serve, and I know you do as well.
Thank you so much.
All right. God bless. And thank you all for listening to Perpetual Motion with Dr. Mo Anderson. If you'd like to learn more about me, visit my website at www.drmoanderson.com. You'll see books. You can read excerpts of some of my books. You can see my services. I do public, it doesn't sound like it, but I do public speaking coaching. I do self-publishing coaching and wellness and transition coaching. I'd love to work with you or speak with your group. Just hit me up. I'm also on social media. Look for Dr. Mo Anderson. Take care, review, renew, and re-you. Thank you.